Imagine if you had an extra 30 hours in the week to do whatever you wanted. 30 hours is a lot of extra time. Now, what's stealing all this time from people? And that would be this: the invention of the smartphone, one of the most impressive and also detrimental inventions of our century. The average American can spend about 5 to 8 hours on a screen, and not work related stuff. This can be video games, this can be a movie, and social media. An extra 5 to 8 hours a day. It's insane. So, I will be explaining some of the negative sides to screens, which include lack of sleep, brain development for kids, and even depression. So, the first one is that screens can actively affect your sleep. One of those reasons is because it radiates blue light. If you are on a screen before your bedtime, around before 2 hours, that affects your sleep because your body thinks it is earlier in the day than what it really is. And because of that, your body doesn't produce melatonin. Then you end up falling asleep later. According to the National Sleep Foundation, a major source of artificial light in Americans' daily routines come from computers, tablets, and smartphones. 80% say that they look at screens often during the past week during the day. 68% report staring at screens in the evening, and most troubling from a sleep health perspective, 58% are looking at screens within an hour before their bedtime. So that's more than half of people look at their screens an hour before their bedtime. And that affects your sleep. Your body won't be producing melatonin because it doesn't think it's bedtime. So instead of winding down, you are actually actively working yourself up instead of going to sleep. So that will affect your sleep. Another thing that screens are detrimental to our society is brain development for kids. It is one of the reasons why kids can be more restless and can't focus as long. According to a child psychiatrist, Dr. Victoria Dunklin, termed the condition electronic screen syndrome. It characterizes this disorder of dysregulation. Children can exhibit irritability, anxiety, depression, excessive tantrums, and impairments at school, home, or with peers. So a lot of times screens can make kids less able to focus because a screen, a video game, they are designed to try to keep a kid active. They are trying to keep a kid into the screen and that they will not lose their focus. So what happens is kids end up forgetting how to sit still and be able to focus when something isn't interesting. These screens are designed to be very interesting to a high level that it's very hard to back out. And unfortunately, these kids don't know how to let go of a screen, their tablet, or their phone because of that. Another thing that can be an issue for kids in their brain development is even social issues. Screens can affect that a little bit as well. Because screens don't encourage human interaction. The National Institute of Health says that studies have reported negative effects on speech, language, motor skills, cognitive development, and social development because of screens for kids. With this lack of human interaction, kids aren't able to get out and learn from experience on how to communicate with people better. Instead, they are stuck to their phones or the tablets, and they are unable to communicate with real people because they don't get that experience. They aren't forced into those situations. Another thing is that screens can be very addictive, and especially at a young age, kids don't really know what they're getting into when they get their first tablet and their first phone. Everything's very new, and the internet is purposely makes themselves very interesting, trying to get someone into it so they can't let go. And of course, kids at a young age don't know the dangers going into the internet. So there are some very distracting things for kids, and it can become a very strong addiction and something that they may have a really hard time letting go as an adult just because they have lived so long as under a screen. So the last thing that screens can be harmful for is depression. It can lead to a lot of depression. One of that is because it is a very single activity. It's very hard to interact with people when you are on a screen, when you're on social media, on the internet. That is something that you typically do on your own, not something you can do interacting with people. A lot of times people will use the internet as a way to self-regulate when they are stressed out and they have anxiety, because it is naturally trying to numb you and distract you from that pain. So it can be very addicting for people who struggle with depression or are going through something really hard, because naturally it kind of numbs it for a while, but ultimately it is not satisfying. Also, people are more likely to compare themselves on the internet. That also leads to depression. And according to MCHC Health Centers, rising rates of depression and anxiety in children are correlated with excessive screen time because of the 24/7 availability of screens and social media. Children have fewer opportunities to take a mental break from society and for their minds to have rest and quiet. So screens are very distracting, and with social media, it is very hard to get out to meet people. And so a lot of times when kids are stuck in screens, they don't get the support from other people, and so they end up comparing themselves to others, and they don't see realistically people on the other side. They don't have any real friends. Also, cyberbullying is a big thing on the internet as well. There are higher percents of cyberbullying than there even were in the past, because now it is so easy to hide yourself behind a screen and bully others. And so that is also another thing that can lead to depression through a screen. So in conclusion, while technology is very helpful, it is also important not to abuse that power. So warning people about the negative effects of screens can help avoid these problems. So consider what you would do with an extra 30 hours in the week. Maybe read a book, get some exercise, or just socialize with other people. So put down your phone as often as you can and put those hours to good use.